Welcome to See the World Differently. Come explore and discover the world around you. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for another episode of See the World Differently with Oceanscape Yachts. This will be our last recording for 2018, the last published recording anyway. So we look forward to seeing you all again in the new year. I wish you a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, whatever it is that you celebrate. I hope that you do it with family and that you enjoy some time off over the holiday season. So thank you again for joining us for our first year of the podcast, and we're so excited to see what 2019 holds. Moving on to today's show, I am joined by Pam Danziger. She is a luxury researcher, marketer, all-around genius in the realm of spending and sort of noticing trends throughout the generations. She runs Unity Marketing online. She is a regular Forbes contributor. She is a speaker for various engagements. And we were just so thrilled that she would stop by and join us on this little podcast that we have. So I hope you enjoy the show with Pam. She does mention at the end where you can find her. She's published a few books as well. So please make sure you listen to that at the end if you wanted to follow up on anything else. And once again, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy. Okay, so we're here with Pam Danziger. We're so happy to have you with us today, Pam. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to let Pam introduce herself in a minute. But she is works a lot with the American affluent. She does a lot of research in the field, and she is just a great mind to have on the show to speak about how people are spending their money these days, where they're spending money, and some of the luxury travel trends that she's seeing for the future. So we're honored to have you here, Pam, and I'm going to let you do a little intro for yourself so I don't take too much time. So thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. I really appreciate talking with you today. I'm president of Unity Marketing. I founded it in 1992, and I primarily, my first book was about why people buy things they don't need. So I've always focused on discretionary purchases. In about 2002, I started to shift my focus more toward the people who have more money than anybody else to spend on things that they don't need, and that is the American affluent, who are, in fact, the world's most empowered consumer market. So that's been my focus primarily for the last, nearly 15, 20 years, is really looking and focusing on affluent consumers, what they want, why they buy, what they buy, and again, travel as a category of discretionary purchases is very important to this high-earning, high-spending consumer.
And you must have seen that, you're saying you've been in here for a couple decades. That must have changed quite a bit. I mean, we've had a few crashes in that time, and the government changes quite a bit, and with that, different spending habits come in. What is your biggest change that you think you've noticed from when you first started and say where we are today?
Oh, well, I mean, it's been a huge paradigm shift in the consumer market, and everybody talks about it, is the impact of digital and online spending and online communication. That has been most profound. But that aside, I mean, that talks to consumer behavior specifically. And what I focus on is consumer motivation. I mean, the psychology, because psychology in the consumer is pretty well fixed. You don't start out as one personality and then change, once you earn more money, change into some other kind of person. I mean, really, the psychology underlines the consumer no matter how much money they have to spend. And for me, the biggest change I have seen is the shift from indulgence and buying things to own things and to have things and to spend on things and show the things that you have to a emphasis on experiences and transforming yourself and becoming achieving experiences, achieving things that you do rather than things that you buy. So it's really been a real mammoth change, or significant underlying change in the consumer, not to own things, but to experience things. And that talks to the growing interest in travel.
Yeah, I think we've discussed, we've done some work with you over the years, and it used to be, especially you're up north in the States, I'm in Canada, and that's a very big sign of you making it at one point would have been, you had a couple of homes, maybe you had a summer cottage that you went to or a ski chalet or something. And I think now you've noticed people don't want that second home necessarily. I mean, the very affluent probably have it already, but that's not the goal anymore. It's more so, like you say, the experiential side of things. It's less owning, more doing.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is the ultimate luxury for anybody is time. And the more stuff you own, the more homes you have, the more cars you drive. I mean, the more time you have to spend in just attending to them and caring for those things that you own. So as we're seeing the consumer market, they're really opting for saving time to have, and to use their time and invest their time more for more rewards. And travel, of course, is one of those things. I mean, as is other kinds of experiences as well.
And something that you've worked a lot on, and you can tell everyone about it now too, is your where you're seeing the biggest spend, I guess, in the experiential realm is with your Henrys. And can you just explain a little bit about what Henry stands for and what they want out of their experiences now?
Yes, the Henry stands for the High Earners Not Rich Yet, and I've just written a new book called Meet the Henrys. These are specifically the millennials Henrys that have money to spend, and that's the focus of so much of my work. If we look at the Henrys, they are at the top 75th percentile in terms of income. So they have incomes from about 100,000 to about 250,000. So they're really at the top 75 percentile to about the 96th percentile. They make up about 24% of the total consumer market, and this is based on U.S. data. But I'm sure it's the same in Canada, very similar in Canada. They make up about 24% of the total consumer market, yet they account in total for about 40% of total U.S. consumer spending. The ultra-affluents, people with, who are rich, even though we could argue about that, but people who have incomes of $250,000 and above, I mean, they're bringing in $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
They only account for about 10% of the total consumer market, simply because there's just shy of 5 million of them. With the Henrys, there are so many more of them, which accounts for their significant spending power as a group. So these are the consumers that I call the heavy lifters. And basically the luxury consumer market looks down on Henrys as being, not there yet. And mass market brands look at these Henrys as maybe being too affluent for them, but yet they really are in the sweet spot in terms of the consumer market, and they're largely unexplored and not understood. And right now, because the millennials have, they came into the marketplace when during the recession, excuse me, they graduated from college, didn't really pick up jobs at any fast pace, but now they've begun to hit their stride. They've reached 38 years old, the leading edge. So these consumers now are really starting to pick up their spending power and their pace, and that's why, I think that 2019, 2020 is going to be the year of the Henrys, where they really start to exert influence and power in the consumer marketplace.
Okay, and you were saying that they maybe don't make as much as the next level up, but would their spending habits keep them from ever reaching that goal, or are they earning at such a rate that they're eventually going to surpass, the ones that you're saying that maybe make $250,000 and they're not quite there yet, but they're spending a lot of money. So it's just that there's a lot of people. It's not that they're going to spend their way out of their own income kind of thing and run out of cash, or do you see them carrying on?
Well, what you need to understand about and look at the lifespan of a consumer is that everyone who reaches ultra affluent levels of income, unless you inherit your money, start out as Henrys, because you start making, between $100,000 and $250,000, maybe not even in your first or your second job, but once you start really kind of gaining some growth in terms of your career path. Not all Henrys are going to become ultra affluents, by the way, and I think it's very important to recognize that they're making, they may have the potential to be ultra affluents, but many of them may decide for lifestyle factors not to even go for that brass ring, simply because it's going to take a lot of time, and they're going to opt for, and that's one of the things that's unique and special about these millennials, is they are in fact opting for more quality time rather than just giving their heart, soul, and all of their time to growing their income. So all ultra affluent start out as Henrys. Not all Henrys reach ultra affluent levels of income.
Okay, that's a good way to put it. And I think that's probably why you're saying in some ways the ultra affluent maybe look down on them, because it's such a contrast, isn't it? Even, I'm in my early 30s, so I fall somewhere in there in these Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, and it's such a different lifestyle now that we do lead. Our jobs are very different. Mental health is a big thing now. So we're talking about burnouts and these, and I can see the older generation sort of looking at us thinking, this is crazy. And I like that you do the psychology of things, because it's interesting to see not only their spending habits, but, the mentality behind it all. It's not just we have cash, we want to blow it, but what makes them want to spend in that way, which is very interesting. And like you say, I don't think many people are talking about it, especially with that Henry generation.
Well, it's interesting because I'm a baby boomer, and I have children that are Henrys, and and I think there's a certain amount for boomers, a certain amount of envy for the younger generation that is actually making different decisions than we did. And again, I mean, the cliche is that nobody says, on their deathbed, I wish I had worked more. I think that baby boomers recognize that there is more to life than just making a whole lot of money. And you want to really, and yes, the baby boomers have given a lot to their children, but at the same time, they maybe would, if, looking back, would have made different decisions in terms of their lifestyle than they ultimately made.
Yeah. And then I guess that also begs the question, would they be where they ended up, though? And then some of those baby boomers, like you say yourself, have Henrys. So they almost couldn't have become a Henry without the baby boomers working the way they did, right?
Right. And, again, another important factor is that these Henrys, that's an income demographic. It really has nothing to do with age. So a lot of ultra affluent baby boomers who were earning a lot of money, once they retire and start, pulling from their retirement accounts and Social Security and so on, actually move back to Henry levels of income. That means they may have significant amounts of wealth, but they start, at retirement, affluent consumers, no matter how affluent they are, often, they will downscale, sell, their homes, move into smaller homes, and start spending in many ways like younger Henrys too.
Okay. So that's interesting too, isn't it? The way it goes almost a full circle, and then, but we're seeing it, I'm not sure I can touch on this, so do let me know. But when we talked before, you did some stuff with Oceanscape Yachts about, different generations and how they spend. And you were seeing, especially in our industry with yachting, you'll get a lot of people who book a vacation with a multi-generational. So either the grandparents are helping to pay for it, or now even we're seeing these younger 40-odd-year-olds who will take their parents on vacation with their kids. So is that something that's also helping to bridge that gap a little bit, where they're less things, more time? So a vacation that we can all do together and experience and make memories, versus buying something else that's just going to sit in the driveway, or another property that you say that you don't have time to actually go visit. So are you seeing that come together a little bit more because of how they spend differently?
I think that there is no question that this multi-generational travel experience is a huge opportunity that's going to bridge the gap between the baby boomers and the millennial generation. And that's because, one, we are all living longer, but if you look at the baby boomer generation, they are more active, they are more healthy, and they are, really want to engage with their children and their grandchildren and with their lives. I mean, I look at myself now and compare myself to my mother at my age, and I mean, she was an old lady, and I'm not an old lady.
Yeah.
It's just a totally different kind of mindset. And frankly, my son and his wife have taken, for the last 2 years, have taken us on vacation and paid for our vacation. Why? Because they get a night out and we babysit, and for me it's a delight,
Yeah.
And it really is a really powerful opportunity for travel companies to think beyond the nuclear family to a more extended family, and there is a tremendous amount of opportunity there. And again, baby boomers are not as active as young people. I mean, we simply can't do the things that we could do at 20 and 30, but yet we're significantly more active than our parents' generation were, 30, 40 years ago.
Yes, I think everyone's a little bit more aware of health and fitness and wellness, and I think it's definitely a hot topic more than it
Yeah.
ever would have been in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you say, it's just things are just shifting in general, right? So with those Henrys, maybe they're not having kids as young, so it's not family vacation. I'm obviously speaking mostly about vacations, but they're spending money with friends or for experiences as a group and less as the nuclear family, like you're saying as well. So that's going to be changing.
Right, and I think that this, the trend toward young people, I mean, maybe even before they're married, traveling and vacationing with friends is also, what they call the families you choose rather than the families you're born to.
Yeah.
That also is a very big trend, and something that I think that travel marketers like Oceanscapes can definitely take advantage of. Particularly, one Henry, a couple of Henrys making $100,000 and $150,000 a year, maybe in themselves can't afford a super yacht vacation, but together they can pool their money and do it and have a great time.
Yeah, and it also has that, the other generational thing is obviously everything's on Instagram and you've got like the travel envy. So it's feeding into that drive to, show that we're splashing out a little bit and, the treat yourself generation and everything else. So I think it's definitely, again, it's so different than it would have been 20 years ago, but it's moving in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's an extremely exciting time now for people in the travel market, but I think that they just need to open their eyes toward the bigger opportunities that maybe that the Henrys represent. It's not just the super wealthy who want to have every minute of their vacation planned and handled by professionals. The Henrys are just one step down in terms of income, but they have a tremendous desire to see the world, travel the world, and experience all kinds of things. So it's a huge opportunity for travel marketers today.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it changes over, when Uber first came out and then Airbnb, and now you're getting all these different, like Oceanscape is trying to do as well. So it's interesting to see what shift will happen next in terms of how we do take vacations and how we do spend money in our downtime.
Right. I think we were going to travel further afield. We're going to want to go to places that other people haven't seen. We're going to want to, we want to hit the bucket list locations before we're 70.
Yeah.
In your 30s you want to hit that. So I think that the wider, the more expansive you can think, and the more the broader you can think, and the wider you can think, there's going to be a niche for so many marketers, travel marketers, in those particular segments. The thing is, you really want to kind of, you want to specialize, but specialize in new and different ways. I mean, everybody's, maybe not everybody, but most people have stayed at a Four Seasons hotel. I mean, that's not the experience they're looking for. They're looking for something really unique and different and special that give them bragging rights and make them feel good that they've explored something that nobody else has really seen yet, none of their circle of friends.
Yeah, I think that trend is really it, like you say, it's going to pop, and it's going to be interesting to see, and I'm excited to be involved in it in some way. So, I just wanted to make sure though before we sign off that everyone knows where to find you, and you mentioned your book, so it's come out, and where can they find the book if they want it?
Well, I'm waiting for copies to come from my publisher right now, but I
Okay.
guess the official publication date is in January. It's called Meet the Henrys, the millennials that matter most to luxury brands. So it's all about the Henrys. I look at the demographics of the Henrys. I look at the purchase behavior, and I look at the psychographics, the psychology of these consumers, and then I profile various brands, and I've got to count them, but there's a whole lot of case studies of brands that have really been able to connect successfully with these Henrys.
Okay, great. We look forward to getting it. I'm getting my copy in January. And
Thank you.
in the meantime, your website or any social media, like where can people
Yeah.
find you if they want to know more?
Well, my website is unitymarketingonline.com. So I have a weekly newsletter, and you can sign up for that, and a number of white papers there. I'm also a Forbes.com contributor in the retail space. I don't get a chance to write a lot about travel, but I do write about what's going on with the consumers, the affluent consumers, in Forbes.com. And I did write a story about shopper tourism. So that was something about that tied retail and travel together.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Pam. I've really appreciated your time, and it's been very interesting to hear about the psychology behind spending, and I hope everyone else has had a good time with it. And hopefully everyone will follow up and go buy the book and check your website out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rebecca. I enjoyed talking with you.
Thanks for tuning in to See the World Differently. Until next time, keep daydreaming.